We had another guest for the panel today, Mia Zabelka from Austria. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to come to Budapest. But if you want to know more about her project, she's working on the House Hungary, which is an international center for sound in a rural area in Austria, and she's been developing cultural initiatives dedicated to the development of cultural activities and synergies between the cultural sphere and nature, environment, and climate change in the Alps Adriatic region. So if you're interested to know more about her project, I'm sure you will find also the links of her projects through the EMC website. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for attending this panel. We have a bit less than 1 hour, and I guess a lot of things to say, but we'll try to keep it also as interactive as possible. So feel free to jump into the discussion at any time so that we make sure we have time for some questions during the panel today. Maybe just very quickly before getting into your presentation, if we read the first line of the program, it says, experts on local communities, urban as well as rural, will exchange on challenges and solutions for sustaining music on a local level. And I was really wondering, how do you think that does such expert exist, or how would you define yourself and the way you work on local communities? Do you want to say just quickly a word on this?
Please.
So I'm not an expert of music industry. I'm expert of more like urban development, and I will show it later in the presentation. But we started this European Capital of Culture program, the development and the preparation already like 8 years ago, and all the way to 2023, it had this focus on how to develop the music in the everydays of a city, of a small city or a medium-sized city. And on the way to 2023, I became kind of part of the music life of Veszprém. Also, in my earlier life, I had nothing to do with it, and I think that's a really good feedback, or like experiencing from the side of an urban developer and see the effect of a small community, how the music, how the developments, the programs, the new actors can change in a short time.
Yeah, so your expertise relies on continuously learning on the daily basis. Yeah, do you want to add something to this?
Hello. I think that something interesting for people who is working in local communities also is to have this not only knowledge in the theoretical side, but also in the practical side, that we are all working in different areas and are all different and special, and this uniqueness is something that we have to know also like in practice.
Thank you. Want to add something?
If you want. Hello. I don't think I'm an expert really at anything. I think for me it's a couple of things. One, never assume, right, anything. Always be curious, right? Be willing to learn. And always think about what the person you're speaking to wants out of the situation.
Thanks for the advice. Today, and also during this forum, we discussed how culture can be a driver to achieve SDG goals. It's often described by our sector as the fourth pillar to sustainable development. In September 2022, there was the UNESCO Conference on Cultural Policies and Sustainable Development in Mexico that gathered 150 states who adopted ambitious declaration on a roadmap to strengthen the public policies in this field. And they called for culture to be included as a specific objective among the UN SDGs. And also back in 2021, during the Portuguese presidency of the of the Council of the EU, was released what we call the Porto Charter, that from democratization to cultural democracy. So it's basically how to provide the conditions for people to develop an active cultural citizenship and in an inclusive and empowering way. So I think today we're going to explore how it can be done through the projects that you're developing. How can the music sector contribute to sustainable development in both urban and rural areas? What are the conditions to sustain music at local level, and how to develop participative and inclusive music projects that connect also local and global issues. What a plan, and we're going to start with Marta. You're going to introduce the way you're working on your project and what you learn from it and what's still challenging. So,
hello, thank you very much. Today I would like to present one of our projects, not also because it's part of the music team, but also because it really represents how we work with local communities. But before I would like to present our organization, we are WAZOCOP, and our main focus is the positive impact in rural areas. So today I will speak always more with the voice of the rural, peripheral, low populated areas. That is where I belong, and this is the main focus of our work. With our organization, we work with social and solidarity economy, and also with creative cultural industries. So not only music, not only culture, also rural development of communities. We work in the community with a bottom-up approach because we belong to the community. We are part of the community where we belong. And our main focus is empowering rural inhabitants through knowledge and meaningful experience. We really believe that the empowerment of any person comes always through knowledge. It's not something that happens by magic. It's happening, we think, thanks to knowledge that can be like more traditional training experience or any other kind of meaningful experience. And we work in two levels. We work in local and regional, 100% focused in the needs of our community. And we work with music, of course, I will let you know later, with archaeology, with literature, with art, etc. And we also work in groups, like working with youth people, migrants, women, like focusing the realities. And also we work with European projects, because we really believe that we can attract the talent, the innovation to our area, and at the same time, make connections from our people to other people in other regions in Europe. Today, I would like to present one of our projects that is related to music, and it's a project to support musicians in their support to local development. This project is about strengthening the cooperative mindset in the music sector for local development. We are very focused in collaboration, which is good, and is more focused in the process. But we really believe in cooperation, that is, there has collaboration, but is focused in the results, because sometimes we need some results, something tangible. So this project is focused in two main things: to improve the labor market and working conditions of workers in music, especially in these local communities, in the framework of social and solidarity economy, that is ethical development of economy that is focused in societies, in social cohesion, gender equality, inclusion, etc. And also, this is a project focusing the positive impact that these musicians can provide in their local communities. So one of the main things is to decide a new profile in classical music or any kind of music, but we are more focused in the classical music because classical music is not always in rural areas, it's in the big centers or, where you have more culture access. So this profile is a music professional who work in conjunction with community level stakeholder with a common goal. And this common goal is related to local development, to sustainable development. For this, we will provide an upskilling experience. I will let you know more later. But the main thing is to reinforce the role of the music in this local development. This is a project that is focused into main groups that are aspiring European music cooperators that can be any kind of music professional, working in the public sector, private sector, composer, teacher, it doesn't matter. It can be any kind of profile. And also for community level stakeholders, because communities has also to be ready to receive this new way of working. We are developing this project that started at the beginning of this year. We are still in phase 1. We have done campaigns to let the target groups know about this. We are preparing a toolbox with all the knowledge and abilities and competencies to be able to work on this. We are organizing a call for aspiring cooperators, so in case someone who is here or you know someone who may be interested in having an amazing experience in Extremadura, that is where we belong, I will let you know later more about it, and we will have also remote group sessions. Then we will meet in Extremadura, that you can see it in red, in South Spain, in the border with Portugal. We will have a festival, we will have a think tank, we will have a hackathon, and it will be an amazing experience of full immersion of a very rural place, low populated, but full of creativity. With this project, we hope that in the short term, the musicians will be able to advance their rights at work, thanks to social economy, cooperatives, these kind of legal entities. In the medium term, thanks that they are with this sustainability in their own projects, they will be able to be a driver for local and regional development. And we hope that in a long term, thanks to this new profile, we will play a critical role in the economic growth. So we really believe that music can do this. So we will have more time to speak, but if you're interested, call us and come to visit us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a very specific question related to the project that you would like to ask right now? Yes, Stefan, do we have a mic for the plenary, please? Otherwise, I can share mine.
Thank you. Regarding the skills acquired by the people engaged in this project, do you have some kind of evaluation and certification of skills acquired in the long term for the profile of the people?
Yes. The first one is cooperation, so is working in conjunction, that this is very important in cooperation. This is the main thing about cooperation. The ability to work with others, the ability to spot opportunities in different places that you may never think about, and also to have being able to understand the context where you belong or you want to work, and how to interact with the community in a horizontal perspective. This is one of the main things of this profile.
Any other question to Marta so far? We'll get back to it. Next, I want to give the mic to Frederica, who's going to tell us more about the Veszprém Capital for Culture. And yeah, I think the presentation is coming. Here you go.
Okay. So hello, everyone. I think I brought a bit different perspective coming from or representing a European Capital of Culture program because as the nature of this program is to focus on 1 year as a goal, but right now we consider also not only as a goal but also as a new starting point. But still, it's a team which implements a European Capital of Culture program, and an institution or a company is different than the ones the other panelists represent, because it has the goal to build up for a year-long program series which can show the richness of European culture to the locals and also the Hungarian culture to Europe. So I brought some basic facts from Veszprém because I think the most of you have never heard of this city, or maybe you already have. It's just 1 hour drive from Budapest. It has 60,000 inhabitants, but it's important that we work together in our European Capital of Culture program with other 160 municipalities, starting with small villages, not more than 50 or 60 inhabitants, up to the biggest city of the region, Veszprém. We won this title in 2018 for 2023, together with Timișoara from Romania and Elefsina from Greece. So we're the 3 European Capital of Culture this year. But along with this title, the next year, in 2019, we won the title UNESCO City of Music as the first ones here in Hungary. You know, it's not a coincidence. I think like appetite comes while eating, so we were just collecting some titles. But but no, I think it's a really lucky thing because it helped us to give a strong focus when we put together the final form of the program we want to implement in 2023 or up to 2023. I just brought a snapshot, a picture of Veszprém because you have to see, we are sitting in the middle of Budapest, and it's a different perspective when you talk about music in Budapest, when you talk about music and musical education, the role of music in local communities in a city of 60,000 inhabitants. So it's a really typical historic town. We have hundreds of really similar towns and cities all over Europe. But when I first arrived in Veszprém, really like 10 years ago, the first phrase I heard of Veszprém, that's a city where either the wind blows, or the bells are ringing, or the choir is singing. And it's kind of still true, but to be honest, what we experienced, that this really strong basis for the love of music and really strong basis of musical education is still there, but you know, with the time, and in the previous panel, I catch these sentences in many relations that how musical education, how the school system, how the approach of a city towards the music industry have to change. And I think that we also discovered and tried to have a grab on this in Veszprém, that also there is really like this strong basis for music and the role of music in the city, but it's rather based on inherited habits, sometimes old memories, and of course on a really wide network of really dedicated individuals. But in the recent years, let's speak about like COVID, the financial crisis, but also in Hungary, the general financial problems when it comes to a city, when it comes to the educational system. We cannot go on with the same systems, with the same approaches anymore. And that's what we try to build in our strategy for how to be a city of music. And of course, we won this title based on, not of course, but that's usually the case, like you have a series of music festivals, regional, national, or sometimes we think or we hope that of international importance. We have already some music initiatives, also event series or festivals, which are not based on a business model, but they are rather like gap-filling festivals, also important on national level, like an Early Music Days festival, which is among the few dedicated to this era in Hungary. But I don't want to talk about festivals because I think everyone can imagine. But I think what is more important when it comes to the role of music for your local communities, how can be built in music in the everydays. We had this phrase in the beginning that And then I ask you to remember the picture of Veszprém, that no more boring Tuesdays. I think anyone who comes from a small city understands this sentence or this motto, that especially outside of summer, on a Tuesday evening, nothing happens. And that in a small city, like it's, the places are shut down, the streets are empty. And what we started to build up in Veszprém slowly, starting in 2019, to bring live with music into the Tuesday nights. And I just, because I can talk so much, sorry, really long, I just brought one of the projects, and I really like to talk about this. I know I have my colleague here from Veszprém, she knows this place very well, but I think it represents a really good model. We call it it's like the street management program, how to open up with some really small financial help services in a small city, where these small cities, small services wouldn't enter the market on their own risk. Because open up a live music club in a city of 60,000 people, where you have the feeling that on Tuesday nights nothing happens, you cannot earn money when you open up a place like this. So that was one of the first programs we started, and is still alive. And I think it's called the Papírkutya, in English, the paper dog music pub. It's well known all over in Hungary among the musicians. We have live music every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and also sometimes during the weekends, but the aim was to have it during the days. And that's only one example. We have the series of similar investments in the city, and it's really changed the atmosphere, the vibe, and also the relation of the locals to live music. Because that's something like an entry point also for community musical programs, but also, and when you continue up to the big festivals. And I brought you another example, which comes from the educational part. When we won this title, UNESCO City of Music, we set this goal that we want to be the city in Hungary by 2030, where the most people play some music or actively participate in music, so play some instrument or can sing. So of course, it starts with widening up the music educational system with alternative music educational programs. We opened up a rehearsal room center with some minor investment in an abandoned building. We opened up, we will open a recording studio there, where also like amateur bands can record and try themselves out. But the more important is most complex program is the program called Hangjáték, Sound Play. We work together in this program with our partner Hangvető. I guess most of you know them. And it has several elements. Starts with early childhood music education, combined with train the trainers programs. So we involve also the nurses from the kindergarten, from the preschools, and so on. And but with several stages with communal music sessions, where also people who have nothing to do with music, something like me, can go there and try themselves out without risk. Like not, you know the risk. Like that's really like creating new entry points to the music education. And that's what I mentioned before. It's like a pop music education center. Part of it, the rehearsal rooms. The other part is an alternative music school, where all generations, not only children and young people, can enter, can experience and participate in music educational programs, individual and group programs as well. And what is more important, or the most important for us right now, so that everything is done and everything is working now in Veszprém. these projects. And now we try to put together the framework how we can go on. Of course, the European Capital of Culture has the financial resources, has a team and everything, so it's like a pink state of mind. But now we start to put together the framework how we can go on. So all of these elements were kind of built up with the perspective that the communities which are engaged in them, they can continue. And with this really small investment and funding coming from the municipality. And now we realize what we're talking about, and I guess your teams and your companies talk about this a lot, that how we can prove that music in local communities has an actual worth for investment, for how you can convince a mayor, how you can convince the city council to not only to invest, but just to don't think on the musical life of a city as a luxury and as a nice to have thing, but as the core element of the everydays. So that's our next project.
Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting. It was actually one of my questions. How do you sustain those projects also on the long term beyond the period of funding? I don't know if it's something that you're also planning through your project Mata. How?
In our case, we have a vision, a long-term vision. So the projects help us to build this vision. So in our case, what we do with the projects that we have is to, it's not the project by itself, it's not the main thing, it's the vision that we want to achieve. So there are projects that are finished and then finished. For this one, we don't want to finish the project. So we are planning to do more, to find more fundings in calls, but also like try to co-fund it with services, product, and fundraising, crowdfunding that we use it a lot.
Thank you. I'm looking at you if you have some question at this point on the projects that were introduced so far. If not, I think we have a quite good transition to you, Shane, especially on how we provide proof for investing in music in our cities. So, yeah, we will wait for the presentation to be on the screen. And I give you the word.
Okay, well, while we do that, how's everyone doing? You're awake, full of coffee? This is pretty amazing. I'm Shane, I'm from London, I'm also Canadian, I want to rejoin the EU. So yeah, please, I still think in my lifetime maybe. So that's me. I'm going to run through this very, very quickly. I'm just looking at the clock. So some of the things I've been working on for quite a long time because I'm getting old. If you haven't heard, Sound Diplomacy is an economic consultancy. Work with cities and governments all over the world on music and nighttime economy and cultural policy and strategy. Music Cities Events runs conferences, and the Center for Music Ecosystems is a European and American nonprofit that I set up, and our objective is research and strategy to prove that music is a catalyst for social good in the world. So everyone's had a glass of water today, right? Okay? If you haven't, hydrate. Very important. A lot went into that moment. This is how I describe it when I talk to politicians and policymakers. So much went into that moment for that to happen, right? There's a whole infrastructure that gets water to the tap into our glass that we don't notice, that we don't understand when we turn on the tap and pour the water, right? Same exact thing happens here, right? That guitar just had to be made, right? It didn't just appear. It was a tree at some point, right? That person had to learn how to play music. It had to be recorded somewhere, right? It had everything behind the stage had to be set up, and so on and so forth. And the more that we explain the value chain and the supply chain and the infrastructure around music, I believe the more that we can get non-music people, as we call them, to invest in music. And that is what I've been trying to do. And I wrote a book about it. So, this took 4 years of my life. It's being published by Penguin Random House around the world, here in Hungary, an independent publisher called Repeater in the UK. please pre-order it because I can convince them to invest in the audiobook. All right, that's how it works. That's my book. So what's in the book? Some stuff about music and policy. So really what we're trying to do is link how music can improve cities in a deliberate and intentional way, essentially what Vesprem is doing, right? Being deliberate and intentional, and really thinking about how music is a catalyst to solving bigger problems, bigger challenges in communities, whether that's how to eradicate poverty, how to fight the climate crisis, how to promote and enshrine gender equality, and so on and so forth. I've been very, very lucky that a few people have read it and said some nice things about the book. So I'm quite lucky about that. I have a quote on the front of my book by Richard Florida. Very, very nice of him to do that. So I'll save it on it, and others. So what I'm here to talk about, though, is a project that I'm doing with the Music Cities Network, very, very quickly, called the European Music Policy Exchange. It's also a Music Air project. Thank you, European Commission. And this is something that we presented in Tallinn, and I couldn't change the PDF, so I apologize. So it says Tallinn. But I'm presenting it in Budapest. So this is the Music Cities Network, if you haven't heard of us. I co-founded it, but I have absolutely nothing to do with it. It is these 10 cities. Lena, who runs the Music Cities Network, loves the map that Australia is really close to Europe. So, you know, just throwing it out there. For any city that's interested in joining musiccitiesnetwork.com, I think it's 6,000 euros a year, and it's worth every penny. Yeah. So this is a bit more about the European Music Policy Exchange. So what we've tried to do with Music Air is simply try to explain how music matters to wider city priorities. So how do cities spend money? I know this is a general thing, right? But cities spend money, to me, based on quite general topics like strategic planning, housing, infrastructure, tourism, education, and so on and so forth. How can music be a clear, deliberate, intentional, and structural tool to be inserted into those conversations, right? So it's not about music, it's about how music makes something else better. So that's what we have tried to do. So we did a whole bunch of roundtables. Quite a few people participated. They were fun. And we've written 8 chapters, which are now being designed into an interactive website, i.e. you can click on it and there'll be graphs and charts and animations, and hopefully people will read it more than a PDF. And the idea is, so one of our chapters is about diversity, equality, and inclusion. That is probably the most complicated chapter, I would say. But it's not how we can make music, how we can create more inclusivity within the music ecosystem, right? It's how we can make cities in general more diverse, equal, and inclusive using music. And that means everything from literal accessibility to buildings, to understanding neurodiversity and how music can interact with that, to obviously investments in education and all the things that we've been talking about for the last 2 days. We did one around climate action too. And one of the things that we've discovered is, and you may disagree with me, and that's fine, but there's quite a lot going on in the music ecosystem around climate action, right? There's a lot of good stuff happening. There's a lot of good stuff happening by companies you may not like, and there's a lot of good stuff happening by, you know, grassroots initiators too. But that doesn't seem to translate into wider climate targets. It doesn't seem to translate into what's being talked about at COP. I don't know if anyone was at COP last year. Was anyone at COP? Okay. Is anyone going to COP this year? Okay. Not one hand. So there was a cultural pavilion at COP last year. I don't know if anyone knew that. It was called Culture COP, right? And it was literally and figuratively sidelined. It was like a thing over here. A bunch of culture people got together, talked about how all the fantastic work they were doing to remove single-use plastic and promote sustainable touring, if that's even possible, and so on and so forth, not inserted into the wider policy discussions at COP, right? We want to try to change that. So that is some of the takeaways of climate action. And then what we've really looked at is what is an ecosystem in a city related to music. This isn't the definition, okay? This is a definition. I always think what I'm saying is not the way to think, it's a way to think. And so what we're looking at is how we can create solutions for every single name on this box. So if you're a chamber of commerce, how can you engage with music? If you're an economic development organization, I guess that's a bit of an American thing, how can you engage with music? Or if you're a landowner, real estate developer, or a business improvement district, or so on and so forth. You can read off the screen as much as I can. So, because what we're asking is, what is a city losing when it doesn't do what Vesprem is doing, right? When it doesn't think deliberately. One thing I loved is, how can we animate disused buildings, right? One is you're increasing safety because there's more eyes on the ground. You're doing something in a building where something wasn't being done in a building, i.e. property rates go up, taxes are paid, and so on and so forth. So if a city does not think deliberately and intentionally about music, what is it losing? And that's what we're trying to answer. What are we actually going to do? So this kind of stuff. So we are writing this white paper. It is one of the hardest things I've ever written, and I've written a book, and I have a PhD. But this is really, really hard because there's no evidence. There's no research. There's nothing about how music really, or very little, about how music can be inserted into wider city policies, which I love what Lazo Co-op is doing, right? It's always about how music can be a benefit to music, how whatever we do benefits us, right? Maybe we should think about how what we do benefits everybody else, and how we can make everybody else's problems better through what we do. So, and we're connecting obviously with the European Commission, all the various UNESCO and Culture 23 things that Audrey was talking about. And that is the panel that we did in Tallinn, so I'm gonna move past that. And so this is Lena's contact if you're interested in the Music Cities Network. It is a fantastic organization. We work with them all the time. They're on the kind of capacity building, networking, bringing people together to talk and learn. I'm on the research and strategy side. I'm working with the UN Development Program and a couple other UN agencies right now, really thinking about what a global music policy framework is, how we can convince countries that lack copyright to think seriously about copyright, how we can convince people that intellectual property is property. And remember, that what we're trying to do is create places to live for, rather than just create places to live, and music is the simplest and most effective way to do that. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Shane.
I hope in the time.
It's perfect. Are there any questions to Shane at the moment?
You can criticize me if you want. That's also fine. No? Okay. Comments?
Yeah, Shane, you've been also working on a report defining resilience in remote music ecosystems. So resilience is also a word that we hear more and more, but sometimes not so easy to define or to adapt it to music ecosystems. So I was wondering, first, if you could say a word about it. And the second question is, because the Music Cities Network is not really capital music cities, but quite big cities still. But is it a two parallel thing? I mean, the work you're doing with medium-sized cities and remote areas, or are there very similarities?
So the idea, I want the Center for Music Ecosystems to be impartial, independent research that anyone can use that helps us understand how music is the catalyst for social good. So we're working with the Nordic Culture Fund, another project, which is very similar, I think, to yours, which is really looking at how remote, rural, and isolated communities can leverage music for resilience. The definition of resilience is the ability to bounce back from shock. That's essentially the definition of resilience that we're working with, which is through the Stockholm Center of Resilience. So if you disagree, blame them. That's their definition. And the idea is, so we're working in Greenland, which I was just there a couple weeks ago, fascinating country, in the Faroe Islands, in Alaska, in Kyrgyzstan, if anyone's been there, it's beautiful, and a few other places, really looking at how music can be inserted into, as a solutions provider for some of the challenges that they have. Mainly around, I'll be honest, around alcoholism, huge problem, around truancy, not going to school when you should, and around emigration, leaving, lots of emigration. So music, so we're looking, so that is what we're looking at. Music Cities Network is, will welcome any size city. I know these are kind of larger cities that are members of the network, but I think the idea was to be a complement to the UNESCO City of Music Network and be a little bit more focused on city-based policy, as well as the capacity building, kind of celebratory, bringing people together side. So, you know, we're working in partnership with the UNESCO Cities of Music Network, and trying to produce trying to do something that is collaborative as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. We've heard that the three of you receive EU fundings to also lead projects at the local level. I was wondering what's this added value of having European funding to develop local projects, and would you be able to do it without those funding, and how it's supporting you to develop this project, and yeah, how have you been working on those applications to get this EU funding to develop your projects?
In our case, I think that it depends on the country, where you have more national, regional opportunities, or maybe not. For example, in Spain, you have access to many local, provincial, regional, national opportunities for non-profit organizations. And this is, for example, for us is a key, because we can have a diverse number of projects that are more like short-term, others are longer, and we can have this mix of local realities and European. And as I said before, the main thing for us is with the European is that it's always an opportunity to grow as organization, to learn from other territories, to have exchange of good practices, and also for the people who are working for, that is the members of our community, that we belong to the community. It's not a vertical thing, it's a horizontal thing, because we are part of the community, we are grassroots. It's very important to have this connection, and also not only the fundings to be able to have resources, but also this mindset and knowing other realities of Europe is not only your thing, also understanding what are the points of view of other places. And this is something that really helped to grow, to go out of your the circle that is like very close to you and understand other kind of realities.
Thank you. I'm looking at the room, but I see no. Yeah, see.
This is a question for Shane. Specifically, I was interested in how you connect to the research community. If you said it's an independent research project.
Oh, the academic community?
Yeah.
We subcontract academics to work on our research sometimes. But I specifically don't want it to be aligned with university or academic, because I don't want it to be siloed in I want it to be practical. And also, but we have a network of academics spread around the world's music and policy that we work with quite a bit. So that's how.
And the second question is how the community of the EMC maybe can contribute to.
Sorry, repeat?
The community of the EMC, how can it contribute to your research?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know entirely how to answer that, other than I'm I really, really want to open the Center for Music Ecosystems up to kind of these questions and suggestions. We're new. I only founded it in 2021. We've only done a few projects. Sound Diplomacy has 35 staff, and the Center for Music Ecosystems has like 3. So it's a little different. But I think the most important thing for me is to be doing something that needs to be done, right? And I don't know what needs to be done all the time. So I want research that is wanted and needed by the EMC community. I want to do it in a way that is collaborative and that it actually helps make a difference rather than just talks about something that's already been talked about. And I would love any suggestions, and I'm happy to be told what to do or to be to help us understand where this type of research is best focused. My focus is on intergovernmental agencies most of the time, right? Because none of them have music policies of any kind, bar UNESCO, but UNESCO is very different. OECD, IMF, World Bank, those types of organizations. So, but I'm really open to any suggestions, and I'm here for the next few hours as well. So just grab me.
Thank you. If no other question from the room, I maybe have a last question. Where in your project, I mean, the local communities are part of your target group. I mean, they're benefiting from the projects we're implementing, but I was also wondering, how do you involve them in the governance of your projects? How do you do this? With which tools, and how does it help you to develop your projects? Maybe, yeah.
Well, but I try to describe how we imagine like the future of these venues and spaces and services. We try to introduce in Veszprém, and the idea is that the community using the facilities themselves, they will try to organize and finance these, in this case, venues. But to be honest, I mean, it's kind of an experiment. I think, especially outside of Budapest, in Hungary, but I think that's a Central European phenomenon. People who use cultural facilities, they want to use them, and they want to they have to be like provided by, someone or something. And I think that's why I say it's an experiment, because we will find out next year how it will work in our case. But what we tried to do from the very beginning, that it was not a secret that, okay, that has the financing coming from us. We have to stop at one point. You have to take over and take some responsibilities. And I hope that this community can make this step. But of course, it's what we also experience, that you cannot get out of the coordination part entirely. So as something like a mediator has to be there also in a small community, and mediating between the administrative part of the city, between the and also the services and everything else. So I mean, I don't have the answer, so that's why I'm a bit babbling. But I think that shows really well the status of how things are evolving in our case, at least.
Thank you. You want to add something?
Yeah,
Marta?
sure. For us, when we want to engage with a certain topic, we organize like networks of topics around some projects. For example, 2 weeks ago, we had a meetup in creative industries, and the topic was cooperation. So we reunited all the creative industries of the region to discuss about cooperation and try to find a common vision, these kind of things. And when the ideas are coming really from the community, there is an engagement, because they are all really providing something. Of course, it's challenging, because we have to find a way to find a common understanding and meet the expectation of the whole community, but it's part of the joy.
Thank you. So if you want to reflect also with your own project and how you do so, I think everyone is staying a bit longer today, but I think we're going to leave the stage now for the conclusions, and I think we have some music also playing, but I think I will let Ruth give you more information about this. Thank you very much for coming here today and sharing your experiences. I think it was really inspiring, and enjoy the rest of the day here in Budapest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.